Welcome. I'm Reverend Tim Olson. I'm the Upper Midwest Coordinator for the Evangelical Environmental Network. Welcome to a glorious fall evening. It's going to be an evening of learning, of fun, and just learning more about what is God calling us to do as we care for the land. And tonight, our special guest is Torray Wilson. Torray is part of a family farm business, a 7W farm near Paulina, Iowa. Torray, where is Paulina, Iowa?
If you look at the very northwest corner of Iowa, we're right on the butt of the, and some people call Iowa a pig. It looks like a pig. We're right kind of up on the butt.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So you're about how many miles from Sioux Falls, South Dakota?
It's about an hour drive to, well, no, an hour
Okay,
and actually more than that.
all right,
We're
all
one
right.
county in and one county in from the west and from the north. So
Okay, all
Minnesota
right.
and South Dakota. So.
And so you are in the midst of harvest?
Yeah, my brother's in the combine right now.
Oh, okay,
So
okay,
yeah,
okay, good. Well, why don't we begin tonight with some prayer?
sure.
And so let's pray. Dear Lord God, we ask your hand upon Torray, that you will guide his words tonight, that you will open our minds and our hearts, those of us who are part of the audience, that you're going to reveal something new to us today, something we hadn't expected, and we'll walk away tonight wanting to fulfill your purpose in our lives as we care for your creation, as we honor you with how we care for the land. So we are honored tonight to have Torray here, and may all the words he says inspire us, and may all that we do following honor you in all things. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Mhm.
Torray, you provide a wonderful YouTube video to kind of show a little more about your farm. So tell us all about what's the video about? Why was the video produced?
Okay, so our family raises hogs as well as dairy, and so we sell our hogs to Nyman Ranch Pork Company, and they select a farmer every year to be their sustainable farmer, quote unquote, of the year. And so my dad was selected for that, and so they sent a film crew out and interviewed us and did a whole bunch of photography. And I think it just does a good job of giving you a quick snapshot of what our landscape looks like, kind of yeah, just a quick flyover of the farm
Sure.
and a few snippets of what we think about it. So
Well, congratulations to you and to 7W Farm. So let's take a look and let's do a tour of your
yeah.
farm.
Certain things on this farm, we are trying to be sustainable, but we feel like there's a lot of things that sustainable is not good enough. We need to be moving beyond sustainable. We need to be improving. We're trying harder to be regenerative, especially in our soils.
So we're trying to tip the scales back the other way.
Right now we're in northwest Iowa, Bryan County. One county in from South Dakota and one county in from Minnesota. My parents moved to the home farm in 1959, so this family's been on what we call the home farm since 1959.
Each of us has an enterprise that we're managing, and we've come back to the farm realizing that we don't thrive unless everyone else in the farm thrives.
Sustainability comes down to your soil health. Everything is related to how healthy your soils are.
When we talk about symbiotic relationships, basically, of the different livestock species, so the alfalfa fields that we grow to feed the dairy cows are benefiting the corn crops, which are benefiting from the cow manure, and that's a kind of a closed system. The chickens are kind of like our pasture sanitizers and go through and eat fly larvae and all kinds of benefits to spreading out the cow pats and making that nutrient cycle run more smoothly and efficiently. So it's just finding these symbiotic relationships.
I really value community, and we really need to share with our fellow farmers our knowledge. We want them to grow, to be successful. I've learned so much, and I felt like we should pass that on from generation to generation.
The joy that comes from just seeing a sunrise or seeing a rainbow or being with your animals and saying good morning, and they make noises right back at you. Like they're not silent. And it's working with people that you love and people that you enjoy.
I think you see life. You want things to be life-giving. You want things to be doing well, interacting with one another well.
Waking up in the morning to the sound of not just one bird, there's probably a half dozen to a dozen different species of birds.
A couple of times I'm working in the garden and there's a meadowlark that loves to sit in the tree here, and it just like saying, hello, I'm here, and it's just so beautiful.
Some people have to take vacations to go see what we see every day, and this is what we do day in and day out.
I love the statement about some people have to take vacations to see what we see.
Yeah.
I think that's remarkable. By the way, if you're listening tonight, you've got a question, I'll encourage you to use the Q&A to write your questions. We'll be sure that we answer all the questions before our evening's done. But one of the things, Torray, I had a chance to ride with you on your side-by-side and take a tour of the farm earlier this year. And I think the thing that really captured my attention was the bird song. I mean, all the varieties of birds that I was hearing. You turn the machine off, it was just like a cacophony, an orchestra that was playing a bird song. Do you use that as a way of determining the health of the farm?
It can be one method to determine the health of an ecosystem. So ecosystems are defined by their diversity. So a desert has the lowest number of species. And then, you go on up from there to a jungle would have the highest diversity, I think, of species. So, and prairies were highly, highly diverse before we settled them. So.
And also I know that another indicator of a healthy ecosystem is the presence of insects.
Yeah.
And I think you've got some slides to show some of the insects.
I guess I pulled some of those out, I think.
Okay. Okay.
But we don't get birds unless you have insects. So in order to have the birds, you have to have insects. So I did a presentation for Practical Farmers of Iowa a couple years ago on like entomology, where you're grazing, like what can you look for, and I'm not an entomologist. I went to Dort University for general agriculture. And so, but as I've been raising livestock on the land and doing this, doing this rotational grazing and managed grazing kind of things, you start to notice things. And I had a mentor that was really instrumental in helping know what to look for. So I do have an exercise that I hope we can do. I've never done it online, but I thought, well, hey, we'll give it a shot and see if it works. If anyone is watching this with another person, you can, hopefully that'll work. Otherwise, have something to write down, a pen and pad handy.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
So let's go ahead and look at the slides. I think it'd be fantastic.
Let me go ahead. All right, so I grew up on the farm that we're on right now. I think it said that in the video that we played, but early on I got interested in grazing. My dad and mom went to a seminar that had Joel Salatin speaking, and Alan Nation used to own Stockman Grass Farmer, which was a magazine that touted the benefits of rotational grazing. Anyways, through that, we started rotationally grazing a 4-H sheep flock. And so I got into that and I was like, wow, I really like this. And so grazing has been my kind of my love and what drew me into agriculture. There's another really famous farmer, Joel Salatin, says you don't just come into farming. Most children are romanced into farming, and that's been my dad's philosophy, is to find something that we enjoy and then letting us run with that. So yeah, so the first picture is just a picture of a pasture that was at its apex, and I like to keep that image in my mind, and just the diversity, and then who doesn't like a good dog? And so yeah, anyway, so our dog Charlie is in there. But yeah, so before we get started, I've been struck by this psalm this year. I'm teaching some of our young boys at church, and this was a scripture that we memorized, and it says, "Forever, O Lord, your word is firmly fixed in the heavens. Your faithfulness endures to all generations. You have established the earth, and it stands fast." And I've this morning, actually, when I was bringing cows in for milking, just looking up into the heavens and thinking about those stars are there because his word went out and created them. And they are, and I saw a satellite moving through the sky at the same time, and I'm like, oh, that's man's thing. It's moving right away. And but then it says firmly fixed. Your word is firmly fixed in the heavens, and those stars are just, they're there. They're solid. And I love seeing those kinds of things as we farm, just how the word is constantly reaffirmed by the natural world around us. And so yeah, and his faithfulness endures to all generations. When I think of well, yeah, here, I'll just go to the next. Yeah, so my grandfather and grandmother started the farm. Then my mom and dad and his brother were a part of the farm, and my dad is still a part. Yeah, just part of sustainability or regeneration, I would say, is that did the farm continue, or did the land manager continue in the path of regeneration? We know just how easy it is for the younger generation to leave the faith of their fathers, and it can happen within creation care as well. So yeah, I just really like how it's, so it went to, this is the original 7W. So there's 5 of us kids and then my parents. So that's how the name was kind of settled on, was that there was, but also 7 is a number of completeness and a wholeness. So we like that significance as well. Yeah, so it has grown with more and more of us having children and more dogs too. This is my family. I'm on the left there, and my wife is on the right, and then our 5 kids. We have Nora, starting from me on the left, Nora, Lewis, James, Audrey, and Simon. That's 14 to 4 are their ages. So yep. We are members of Organic Valley, and we market most of our milk to Organic Valley, and yeah, they've been really good. Nyman Ranch came along for the pork side and helped the farm out in a critical time in the late 90s when hog prices were taking a dump, and gave us a boost in income there. And then Organic Valley, we were 3 months, hold up, 3 months away from selling our cows, and Organic Valley came to us and said, hey, I think we can get you guys on a truck and get you picked up. And so we have stayed in the dairy business. I am a first generation dairy farmer. My wife grew up in the dairy, but we are actually relatively an anomaly in the dairy world of not having a family dairy to jump from. All right, this is the exercise. So part of our journey has been learning to pay attention. And So this is an exercise I want you to do. Whether you're with somebody, if you're with somebody, it's really good to just, name off things that you're going to observe. So I want you to pay attention to this next slide. I'm going to give you like 30 seconds to scan it and to write down all the different species or anything you notice in this next photo. It's easier when you have feedback from other folks to know what they're seeing. But yeah, so hopefully you've gotten a lot of things you've noticed. Now, what do you see? And I think if you're, it shows up better actually on the computer screen. Now, do you see it? We go clear in. So paying attention, I was just trucking across our pasture, I think it was Sunday morning, and just getting chores done, moving a electric fence wire, and I just about stepped on this, and I thought, you know what, that's a really good good picture, or something that struck me as being beautiful. And yeah, but in the other ones, so coming back to here, you just, if I hadn't seen that slight blue, I would have missed it. And so paying attention is just having the awareness to have our eyes notice things. And some of the mentors that have influenced me a lot were very, very good at observing. And funny thing is that in Bible study, the first thing we do is read a passage. You might want some preliminary information about the context of it, but then you're observing it, and then you list out all the things that you see in it. And I actually use this kind of exercise to help students understand how to do Bible study. And so list out all the key elements, and then you start to analyze, well, is the sun, do you see any bare ground in this picture? No, I don't see any bare ground. And you can do the same, it translates into Bible study as well. And that, like, do you see any relationships here? Is there a certain word that's repeated over and over? So like in this picture, I see a clover leaf that's repeated over and over in here. And so it's been a really cool tool to be able to translate that into how do we grow spiritually when we study the word, but also when we study creation. All right, I'll keep going here. This is another, so this photo may look just like, thatch or bare ground and at first glance, but these little, I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but there are little tufts here and there. And that's an indicator to me. When I see those, I know exactly what's going on. Here's one of those, a close-up. It's in a different location, but the same kind of phenomenon is happening. And what that is there's the little earthworm, and he built this little hut over the top of his hole. And this little cap here is just chocked full of earthworm castings, and he is changing the soil in the way that God designed him to change the soil. So it's fascinating to be able to walk across the pasture and see that. Another thing to look, you can look across landscapes. This would be on the left is a pasture that we were resting for almost the full season. And then on the right was a tree buffer zone between our neighbors that we graze with bulls and steers that are not organic. And you can see just one grazing on the right changed the expression of those grass plants. The ones on the left are fully expressing themselves. They're going to seed. Stems are turning brown. And you might think, oh, well, that field isn't carrying on photosynthesis very well, though we should want this one over here in the green. because that's going to capture more sunlight. Well, here's another picture. If you start to look down under the canopy, there's still green, so there is still solar capture happening. But then there's also a new generation of grass that is healing bare spots. So we're starting to implement where we will rest a paddock for the full season instead of tearing out and reseeding with purchased seed. We found that actually just resting, and sometimes it doesn't even have to be the full season, but it just has to be enough to get seed expression and a moisture event to get the seedlings started. Or sometimes you have to graze through and get the seed in contact with the soil before this will happen. We are wet enough here in Northwest Iowa most years that we just have to wait for a heavy rain and seeds will start. So yeah, so what this is, when I'm relating, a healthy community, has not only a diversity of plants, but a diversity in age. And grazing is a key part of that, being able to manage those plant communities. So back here, this was one where it's healing bare spots. Here's, this is a small grains field. And what I wanted to point out is this is what we call capping. This structure here is not good. This is what causes runoff when a soil becomes capped. It does not allow, as soon as a few raindrops hit this, those cracks all seal off and you do not get the infiltration. See how where the oats are actually growing, it's still a deep color and there is still a microclimate there that is allowing water to infiltrate. So I do a lot of pictures where I just take a picture of my toes so that I have a scale to gauge things by. So here's
Torray, just a moment. Just a reminder to those listening, as Torray goes to the slides, if there's questions, you want clarification, please use the Q&A. Thanks,
oh,
Torray.
Yeah, and stop me if there is something that they want to go back to, and we can switch back through them. But yeah, and just another picture of pasture where we're checking community dynamic. Well, in holistic management, which is my wife and I were trained in that, and one of the ways to monitor the health of your ecosystem is to do biological monitoring, and part of that is looking down at a set amount of soil and in a field and keeping track of that, so that you know you're moving in the right direction. Here we've got some bare spots. There's probably going to be needing a fuller rest and some seed expression at some point. We found that most grass plants are setting their tillers in the fall. So if we can avoid grazing after probably August, we can allow those plants to next spring then express tillering to fill in those gaps. Sometimes weeds are not really weeds. They are actually fixing a problem. This was a cocklebur, no, burdock, excuse me, not cocklebur, a burdock. And this was all that I could see up here in the left corner, but I pulled it out and this is like a 3-foot taproot that was creating airways and waterways for future. So weeds are tending to, they're just a symptom of an issue underneath. So something I always try to remind myself is Jesus Christ is the center of everything. John 1:1-5, which says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him. That's what I love to hear, that. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. And then just the idea of, I think in our video, we talked about the thriving, the life-giving part of the farm. Every farm should see life happening. So in Jesus Christ, there is life, and the life is the light of man. And so I think of that light as joy. The joy of man is in Jesus Christ. And I love how creation expresses that in a way that affirms that. And light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. So, and in fact, cannot. And then I'm always reminded also of Romans 1, verse 19, which talks about how all of us, whether we believe in Jesus Christ or not, are aware that there is a higher power. And the people that I think have the most faith are atheists, because there is so much evidence all around us that there is a creator and a divine being. And I think the biggest problem is not observing or being exposed to the natural world in ways that allow them to see that. So it says that the evil one comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and also to blind. So that is what can happen. All right, so that's the pasture side of things. We rotate. Well, if there's questions about how the pasture management,
Yeah, Tor, this is a great time.
Okay, just go.
I have a question here. Torray, do you grow your own feed? Question about types of soil. How many acres? How many cows? And how much alfalfa is grown on how many acres? Several questions.
So I haven't, let me get to so there are three families on this farm, actually 3.5 almost. And there's 620 acres that we farm.
Okay.
About, let me think if I get all these. In any given year, there's probably 200 acres that is either in alfalfa or a forage crop of some sort. 200 to 220, I would say. And then the balance is in crops. Or we also have a lot of tree riparian areas that we've planted, and I think there's about 15, 16 acres of that. Trying to think. Oh, our cow herd so we grow all of our own feed. There's maybe in a drought year, we might purchase some hay for the dairy cows, but otherwise, and there's soybean meal. So we grow beans, send them out, and then bring back meal. So in a way, it's still a closed loop. What was the other? Oh, dairy cows, the number that we raise. So there'd probably be around 200 animal units. So an animal unit is considered like 1,000 pounds of beef or 1,000 pounds of sheep. So between 200 and 250 animal units that we're raising. So, our area generally receives around, I would say, 27 to 32 inches of rain. And so that's kind of where we are in the rain scale. And our summers are very hot and humid most of the time. We have fairly steady humidity throughout the year. All right, did I get it all, Tim?
Yeah, you did. Just one clarification. One of the things on the cows that's interesting is you said you just got done. We talked on Tuesday with fall calving.
Yeah.
So you're calving most of your dairy animals in a group. I mean, you're not. A lot of dairies have calving all year round, but you have clustered that calving to one time of the year.
Yeah, that's actually 2 times in the year.
Okay.
So we have a spring herd and a fall herd that are calving.
Okay.
So that gives us seasonality. Something that you'll see, and I think it's a very biblical thing, is to have seasonality to your life. And so we go through seasons of calving, seasons of kind of autopilot, and seasons of drying off and relaxation to a certain extent. So the spring herd is actually smaller than the fall herd, and part of the reason for that is that we've found it a real struggle to milk cows through the heat of the summer. And so, yeah, it's actually been easier to produce milk fall and winter, and then have more dry animals in the summertime. So
Again, if you have more questions, please go to Q&A and write your questions there.
yep. All right. Yeah, so just some scriptures that I feel apply to how we look at creation. So yeah, so we grow crops as well. This is a field of soybeans and a crop of kids. So this is, here's the more of the crop of kids and sweet corn that we grow for our family. We've had people that wanted us to do more sweet corn, but we're not quite there yet. So this is some of the pigs. So my sister, this is her enterprise. She does a lot of farrowing and deep bedding, and she enjoys that a lot. And she, I guess, I don't know why that was in the crops thing. That's a slide out of place. Anyways, we also do oats. This year we were playing with triticale and rye as some other small grains to plant on the farm. And this is so this is going to be, this is a nature's cover crop. So an organic farm, we don't use any sprays, no herbicides, fungicides, pesticides, no chemically produced fertilizers. We can use mined products, and if they're not overly processed, but that's a whole nother talk. But anyway, so we tend to have a very healthy cover crop that God planted. And so, yeah, so it looks pretty green when we go to plant. And then we use what's called ridge tillage. So it's I've got some slides here that is coming, but so this was in front of the tractor. This is behind the tractor. We've created basically a black spot that's weed free and pushed all of the weed seeds that were on top of the surface into the middle of the row. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And this is the mechanism that does it. There's a wheel that slices and stabilizes it, and then a sweep that pushes the dirt off to the side. And we run that, and then we come behind with our planter. And the tanks on the top, we're experimenting. This is year 3, I believe year 3 of using a starter fertilizer made from molasses, sugar, compost extract, and feel like I'm forgetting, liquid calcium. So it's a very carbon-based starter fertilizer, not nitrogen-based. We have found that nitrogen is usually not our limiting factor. It is usually carbon. So it's just a frontal view. There, the crop is starting to come up. You can see there are weeds generally in the middle of the rows and not where the soybeans were grown. And then behind it, generally it's cleaned up fairly well. And sometimes you'll see it looks green in the row, and then as the sun hits it, you'll see the roots desiccate and start dying back. But, controlling soil flow is, this is not, as far as regenerative, not always, I don't always feel like it's the best, but we do like the ridge tillage because it does eliminate some of the fossil fuel that we have to use. Seems to, it takes a lot less horsepower to do it. And it generally has a better result in the crop. That's just another view of soybeans. All right, so why do I have a picture of a cow stuck in a window? Well, so I've given you a lot of good pictures of good days and things that are going well. Not every day is like that. We have bad days too, and things don't go as we had hoped. And sometimes our heads get bigger than our britches, like this heifer who thought she could jump through this little hole in the wall. So one key thing I think as a farmer is to remain humble. And nature tends to humble us as well, but instead of getting angry about it, when this heifer did this, I just started laughing, and I just like, you have to take a picture. I have to take a picture of this. And actually all it took was we just lifted her back end up and she jumped right out. So it wasn't a bad end to this. But yeah, there's things like that that do happen. And yeah, it's just realizing that God is in control, and he needs nothing from us. Like he could restore all of creation with the snap of his finger. Just think of the stories where the disciples were floored at who Jesus was, because he spoke to the wind and the waves and they obeyed him. And that's the God we serve. That's the Lord that we have over us, is someone who can, at his words, just instantly change the environment that we're in. And so I don't think we have to go about creation care with this fear or this idea that if we don't do it, oh no, the world's going to fall apart. Well, we know that he is in the supreme location, and he has authority over all of creation. And he multiplied 5 loaves and 2 fish to feed 5,000. So we can have confidence in who he is. And it amazed the disciples to see him do these things. And I think I'm amazed when I see things like that. All right, this is I love this quote from C.S. Lewis. We all want progress, but if you're on the wrong road, progress means doing an about turn and walking back to the right road. In that case, the man who turns back soonest is the most progressive. And I think that's one of the things that helped us become more aware of how to manage the environment was a holistic management model. And this, I don't have time to go through all of this. I don't. And but some of the key areas were these ecosystem processes, and the holistic goal we did as a family in 2006. My parents and I did that, and then as people have come back, we've somewhat brought them in on that. And then just the ecosystem processes of community dynamics, water cycle, mineral cycle, energy flow. So this community dynamics is really what's different than a lot of other ways of looking at the environment, and knowing that, and that's kind of what I was talking about with the grass plants being mature and going to seed. There's things at play there. Diversity is at play there. And the tools that we have, really as human beings, we just have human creativity and money or labor. Like money and labor are interchangeable, and human creativity is the one thing that we have an abundance of. And since creation is a complex thing, not complicated, it's often very simple, but it's very complex. And so it's amazing to me how God has created humans to have that creativity to be able to manage creation that way. Holistic management has testing guidelines, ways to make sure a decision is going to move you in the right direction is defined by your goal setting at the beginning of it. But for us as Christians, oftentimes that's already set. We may have to flesh it out a little bit for the wording that means the most to us, but really we just want to bring God glory in what we do, and we want his creation to give him glory as well. Yeah, and I won't go, but this feedback loop is important. And I think this is the part where we realize that we have nothing to bring to God. And so assuming that we're wrong when we're trying to address a problem is really key. Having that humility. And what that allows you to do is you look for when you are going wrong. And instead of assuming that you're right and just keeping on, you kind of are more aware of when things could be going awry. And that gives you the ability to adjust more quickly. So yeah, as we've managed the farm, it's really been helpful to have a holistic goal. I'm not going to go through, but these, if people are interested, it's more laid out, the statements and things that help us. But community, we have a a grazing group that meets a couple times in the summertime. And with technology and phones and things like that, you can still stay in touch with people a lot further further outside of your local community. But I still really enjoy just getting together with other people and talking about pastures or crop fields or whatever it is, and trying to get to the root cause of issues, or just enjoying seeing people's successes as well. So I kind of mentioned this before, but when working with nature, assume that you are wrong, because complex refers to systems with numerous nonlinear and emergent interactions. So I guess I could read all of those, but it's basically saying it's the difference between sending a rocket to the moon and managing a classroom full of students. A classroom full of students is complex because you have a lot of different things going on. Sending a rocket to the moon is much more linear. Like, we know the physics, we know, or a lot of people have figured that out, so that it is we are able to do that. So so I mentioned that we're doing compost extract. So 3 years ago, I think I was like, all right, I've been hearing about this Johnson Sioux compost stuff. We're just going to do it. So I built these totes, and there's little aeration tubes that go in them as you start them. And then you leave them for a year and add worms to them. That one in the palm of my hand is a little, yeah, it's not an earthworm. It's actually a composting worm. So red wiggler is what we ended up purchasing for that. And wait a minute. Yeah, so we just, I've been experimenting with that and creating this compost that we then, basically you wash it and get as much soil life or compost life out of it. The Johnson Sioux is different too, because it's, you're trying to create a fungally dominant compost. And we found that since we've torn up prairies and we're constantly tilling, we're pushing our soils more bacterial. And so we need to be applying stimulants that push it back, more fungally based. A lot of your nutrients become more available, and yeah, there's networks that can develop, and there's people way smarter than I am that can explain all that. But yeah, we just started it, and it was just been a joy to see it form, and just the smell of it is fabulous, and just to see that humus. And then we use that as the seed starter, and just to see the biggest difference that we've seen is that the plant color is deeper and richer. And so that's been really enjoyable to see that. And yeah, I don't know what it all means yet, but it has translated into some, we think, some plant health and yield benefit. So yeah, so we just know God's promises are true. And I love when we're traveling somewheres or just on the farm and a rain shower comes through, and you get this gorgeous rainbows. And it seems like the last few years we've just had some really good ones that popped up. Yeah, small things do matter. This was a butterfly that was so concealed. It just looked like, I actually thought it was a leaf that had landed on my boot, and then it opened up and just this gorgeous butterfly looking up at you. And I think that's what I love to see and what keeps me so excited about being a farmer and being able to work with creation is there's these expressions of God's joy and glory all over. Yeah, one of my mentors said, small things do matter. And we see that mirrored in scripture. One who is faithful in a very little is also faithful in much. And one who is dishonest in very little is also dishonest in much. And this was a proverb that I remember one of our animal science teachers sharing with us. And he said, whoever is righteous has regard for the life of his beast, but the mercy of the wicked is cruel. This is just another something different that now I don't see a lot of people doing. We group raise our calves on the dairy. Those barrels on the sides of this pen we call mama barrels, and we group feed the calves with, we pour milk into those to feed them and to start them. And one of the principles we've seen in nature is that nature likes movement and sunshine to cleanse and to keep things clean. So yeah, so these pens we put between 8 and 10 calves in each one. And you can see that in the center, let's see if I can point it out. This center gate here is held up off the ground, and these side panels are actually acting as runners on like a snow sled. And then we put 2 together, and then we pull it ahead with our cheap side-by-side, an old Subaru Outback. And so the calves, after every milk feeding, get a new slice of pasture. And so their urine and feces all go behind them. And we have found great success in raising healthy calves this way. So that's something. And then, there's always some things that make life a lot easier. So I just have to show off my ATV modifications. So we put this, we call it the fence rhino. So basically we don't open and close any gates. We just drive over the wires and they get shoved under. And I first saw this by a grazer in Saskatchewan, Neil Dennis, who's since passed away, but he had so many gadgets and I loved them. And so I had to build my own. So this reel holder here, I can lay out 2 fence wires, and my posts are all organized right here. And I can just sit on the ATV and put fence in quickly. We're often moving. Most days it's once a day. Every group that we have is getting moved once a day, and I try to only have 2 groups, like a milking group and then a dry cow group. So and then actually at certain times of the year though, we will move up to 6 times in a day. And what that does is concentrates the animals. They put consistent dung down and urine down and puts even pressure on all the plants. So you don't have this patchwork of plants left alone and some plants grazed, and it creates an evenness so that all can come back and have an equal chance at growing and filling in the gaps. So these are some of my mentors. I have never really met Alan Savory, but I've read his books and listened to some of his talks, and his ecosystem processes are just fabulous. A lot of his observations are absolutely fabulous. Joel Salatin, Salad Bar Beef was something that influenced me. Andre Voisin, Grass Productivity. And this is really the center guy down here. Terry Gompert was an extension agent from Nebraska, and I learned a ton from him. He was just a peach of a guy. He probably would be embarrassed of me saying that, but yeah, he passed away, I think in 2012. But played a huge part in my life and where I am today. I think that's it. Oh, so no, I guess I do have a video here I'm gonna play. I've always wondered what it would be like to walk in the presence of God. And I feel like for me, this was one of those glimpses of just walking with the Holy Spirit. Was like walking through a monarch migration. And the sun was just shining just beautifully. And I had to go home, and I got Aaron. I said, "You just come with me and just walk down this lane." It was just fabulous. I'm so looking forward to heaven and all the cool things that we're going to see there. And I'm just glad that God gives us glimpses of that here on earth. So,
Torray, what a wonderful, wonderful tour you gave us of the farm and some of your philosophy and your theology related to the care of the land. Let me ask some questions here. We've got 5 questions, and if you've got other questions, please add them. A question was raised, do you flood where you're living?
Do we
And
flood like irrigation, or can they clarify that? Or are
that's
they
good.
thinking,
I don't know. So the person who asked that question, do you flood? Are you talking about, as Torray said, are you irrigating, or is that just nature overdoing the rain? And so you're getting. And the question is the Australian method a method that would work in the USA? So I know that in the promotion, we talked about the fact that you are using genetics from New Zealand.
yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
Um, yeah, genetics, I am not super involved in the genetics side of things, but yeah, there is a sense that there needs to be a cow that is adapted to grazing. And so there's two ways to look at it at an animal is one, you can have the animal adapt to the environment that you live in, or you can actually, what most US dairies do is they change the environment to fit the cow and try to give her all the perfect situations that she can thrive in. And so hence our per cow production is super high, but I would, yeah, I don't have the numbers to know otherwise, but other countries look at how much are we producing per hectare or per acre, and you rarely see that figure in US dairies. So we use New Zealand genetics because they have more of that idea of we want to produce the most milk we can produce per acre rather than per cow. And so that's why we feel that is, I mean, that's what row crop farmers have done for centuries is tracking their yield per acre. And I guess it's not necessarily yield per acre either, because it needs to be a profitability per acre as well. So if we think about sustainability as a three-tiered stool or three-legged stool, you have community, financial, and ecological. So you have to balance all of those.
I appreciate you talking about profitability per acre. I think one of the stories that struck with me was when you're using the Johnson Sioux extract and you use that along with normal soil health management on cropland. And I don't think you brought any outside inputs into the production of corn, but yet you were still getting that around 200 bushels per acre. I found that just remarkable.
Yeah.
And just thinking if we can decrease or eliminate some of those imported inputs, how that amplifies profitability.
Yeah, I think I remember reading an article about Gabe Brown, and just his cost of production was just minuscule compared to other farmers. And yeah, I think that's what drew us to organic farming too, is it's more of a closed cycle system that insulates you from a lot of world events and you know, just struggles with getting fertilizers and things like that. I think there's something else. Oh, and we're not, I should, like 200 bushels is not really that high for our area. Like that's probably on the low side for most people in this area as far as yields go. But we're seeing a slow gain. So part of the regenerative thing is that it's kind of like a flywheel. Start slow, and you just need to keep ticking it a little bit. Just get it flowing a little faster, a little faster. And so I was at a family event last weekend and was talking to us, someone who had been to some research plots where an organic farmer was doing a lot of the teas and things that we're doing, the microbiology type stuff. And they were pretty close to 300 bushel corn. So it's just, we haven't even begun to see where this can actually go. So.
Yes. Here's another question for you. How long do you milk your cows before drying off? And how many cycles do they go through before being removed from milking?
So we milk the cow for, sometimes they dry off early, so it could be 9 months and then 2 to 3 months dry. And actually sometimes it can be longer dry because we will ship, if a cow doesn't breed for the fall window, we'll shift her to a spring calving window. And because it's actually quite expensive to raise the heifers to replace that cow. So we try to keep that, once she's in the herd, we try to keep her. Our oldest cow right now is 13. So she's been in there a few cycles. And we've been in kind of a growing phase. So our cows tend to be younger right now. I think 3 or 4 is our average age right now. Yeah, but that's partially because we're in a growth phase. So a lot of older organic farmers or organic dairies, yeah, it's not uncommon for them to have 7, 8, 9-year-old cows. So, yep.
Here's another participant who wants to thank you for your presentation and what you're doing. The question is, how does the diversity of your farm add health to the farm? And are there other things you'd like to be doing on your farm?
Oh, there's tons of things I'd love to be doing, but my brother, this spring, he's like, okay, we need to slow down on the experiments and just, try to make sure we got some of these down. So yeah, I kind of have a lot of ideas, and my dad has a lot of ideas, and it's good to have the balance within our family, that diversity of yeah, having people put on the brakes in certain situations. So yeah, the diversity, how does it add? There's a lot to that question.
I mean, wasn't
I'm
part of
drawing
your
a blank, and then like how to
wasn't part of your journey though, as a farm operation many years ago, was a health issue with your dad and his
Oh yeah. Okay, so
chemicals?
yeah, that gives me a jump off point. So my dad developed severe allergies to herbicides, and in fact, in the springtime, if a neighbor is spraying, like he has to go inside and try to limit his exposure to it. He's watching this right now, I think. So, hey, Dad. Anyways, yeah, so that was kind of our cue that we needed to eliminate as many of the chemicals as we could. And another part of that was my mom got involved with the Weston A. Price Foundation, which looks at traditional foods and really healing yourself with food. So much of I think I heard that like 1 to 2/3 of the United States has some sort of autoimmune disease or chronic illness. Maybe not autoimmune disease, I think it was chronic illness. And a lot of those they're not, they weren't present a few years ago. And so what's the common cause of that? I think they're trying to figure that out right now. But a big key to that is the food that we eat. And I think the more nutrient dense food we get, I don't know how they're going to start watching for this, but I think it will be in our future of pushing people to eat more nutriently dense. And fermented foods are huge. And so a lot of the traditional foods that we've left behind, the ones that took a long time to make, like sauerkraut and those things like that, were loaded with probiotics and things like that. So we need to get back to some of those things. So my mom was studying that, and my dad has having these health issues, pushed us another step. My grandfather was one that could not have weeds anywhere. And so we didn't really switch to organic until he had passed away. So sometimes there needs to be a change of generation before certain steps can be made. And so, but I was already at that time, I was doing the grazing. There was a piece of the farm that would flood naturally once to twice a year. And I was given that to practice rotational grazing on with the sheep flock. And so, yeah, that's how we started doing the managed grazing. And then the organic side. So we haven't been normal, I guess, for a little while, because my grandpa and my dad, we did pasture farrowing. So we had these little A-frame huts all over in the fields. And this was like something, I think probably the 1960s, 50s, 60s was common. But we had a lot of hogs out on the field. And we had these 4 identical strips of crop ground that we rotated the hogs through. So it would be 1 year would be corn, and then soybeans, and then oats, and then alfalfa. And the alfalfa was where the pigs would run for the entirety of the growing season. And then the next year they would move over to where the oats would always have alfalfa underseeded into it. And those were the first strips that we switched to organic production. And it was just seamless. It was just like we saw hardly any change in weed pressure, hardly any change in yield. And to this day, they continue to be some of our best fields. So that confirmed in my mind that the presence of livestock is so essential to the ecosystems. And there's a lot of people that are putting pressure on, oh, we shouldn't have cows, they're causing greenhouse gases. And no. Their ecosystem benefits way outweigh anything that they're belching. So, and we can see that in the history of our farm too. So yeah, one benefit we didn't realize that the pigs were doing was that they were rooting out cutworms and grubs in the alfalfa fields. So when we would go to plant the corn, there was no need for pesticides. And when we kind of shrunk the sow herd, so we couldn't get over it. There was only 16 acres, but that was a lot of sows and pigs that were on 16 acres. And when we moved away from that system, then we realized what they were doing. The ecosystem process that they were serving was to eat out those grubs and make a clean soil bed for the corn crop the next year. So that's a small snippet of how diversity benefits the farm. There's just, yeah, I love those interactions, and we're still learning. Every year we're learning different interactions, because every year the weather patterns are different, and every year we have to learn.
Well, with that in mind, another participant is asking, where can a person learn more about holistic management?
There's two kind of schools of thought. There's Holistic Management International, which is a nonprofit, and then there's what's called Alan Savory. And they had a slight disagreement at some point, and he started his own. And I think it might be for profit. I can't remember exactly, but there's something called the Savory Institute. You can learn about holistic management through either of those avenues.
Here's a question from California,
yeah,
to Northwest Iowa. Thanking you for being a good steward of land. And the question is, do you incorporate prairie strips into your operation?
We have not. It's something that we might consider. We do have buffers, and then in some of our perennial pastures, we're seeing natives starting to move back in. So I think our perennial pasture, we do have a few locations that will never be cropped, and that's where we're starting to see prairie strips or prairie plants starting to come back. Okay.
Here's a participant who's saying, great job, Torray. One thing I observed is that everyone in your slides was smiling. A true testament to the joy of working with God's creation and a happy family.
It's called photo editing.
Okay. Oh, I'm not sure about that.
We're still sinful people, and we have our bad days. But yeah, there is a lot of joy in working the way we've found to work. Yeah. So, but I did select video or pictures that we were smiling in. So,
and if you have a heifer going through the wall and you can still laugh, there's something right going on.
Oh, some days you don't. But
I understand. So another question about Australian method for dairy. One dealing with, do you think I'm going to edit this question just a bit. Do you think your method you're using with the of the pasture rotation, grazing, feeding all your homegrown feed and so on, do you think that is contributing to healthier dairy animals?
I don't have anything to compare it to, really. I guess I would have to see another dairy. This is the
Okay.
only type of dairying we've known. So
Okay, all right,
I'm not sure I can answer that.
okay. Person's wondering, can they ever get a tour of your farm?
We do have field days periodically. We have done some private tours. We found that it is more advantageous for us if we do have a little fee to come on, and because it does steal some time from our day, or not steal, it does take some time, and so yeah, so we can have a host tours.
And so they can make contact with you if they have an interest in tours.
Yeah, I think we got a contact earlier today.
Okay.
We'll try to get back to you.
And then also, you work with the Practical Farmers of Iowa. They have field days. Are anything scheduled for your place in 2026?
No, not that I know of.
Okay. All right.
So yeah.
Well, here's a question. Here's another question. This is one that is very, very similar among people who are practitioners of soil health. This person says it this way: have you found that your sustainable farming practices have disconnected you from more commercial farmers around you? And how do you talk to others about what you're doing? How do you talk to your neighbors?
Yeah, so there's this thought that you know, you don't throw pearls before swine. So you have to use some discernment in the crowd that you're speaking with. You don't just start going off on fungal, the bacterial dominance, and all this kind of stuff. You choose your conversations well. So I just drop hints here and there. If somebody asks a question, you tend to wait for a question, and then I'll try to answer it as best I can.
Lord God, we thank you for the harvest that's in play. We ask that you continue to watch over our farmers who are out in the field, keep them safe and keep them wise. And Lord, we thank you for the abundance of the harvest. And Lord, let us never take any of this for granted, but may we raise up and glorify your name in this time of the harvest, that this harvest will feed a world that is hungry, not just physically, but also spiritually. And Lord, we pray that all that we do in word and deed pleases you as we go about doing your work here on earth. So we send you out tonight, and have a great evening. Bye-bye.